So I would challenge you to think about, if you're going to be in your home, in your neighborhood, 90% of the time instead of 40% of the time, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in the left or on the right? I think it's pretty obvious. And so the places like Singapore and what you do with Singapore, these are the places that people are going to want to live, right? They went through the affluent, auto-dependent, they became transit-oriented, then they got rid of the cars, affluent, compact, TDM focused. And young people, they want everything within 5 to 10 minutes if you ask them. By the way, empty nesters want the same things. So old people and young people, when you poll them, they want the same things. So with all this new technology, it's easy to get focused on like autonomous cars and artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And I know some of you are thinking, well, wait, I thought you said those were all good things. Well, yes, but we don't want to organize ourselves around all of those things. We want to use those as tools to get to the place that we want. But fundamentally, I think people will probably lead simpler lives in the future, probably spend more time in their neighborhoods. And I will tell you, ownership is pretty much dead in cities. Homes appreciate, there's value there. Ownership of other things, not so much. And in the US, even home ownership for young people is really going down. So the autonomous vehicle and a lot of these technologies are just a means to an end. What we don't want to do is to redesign our cities around the autonomous car, like we did in the 1950s with the combustion engine powered car. We want to create wonderful spaces. We want to give people information so they know how to get around, which is another thing that I'm very impressed with here. We have to admit that this isn't working and we can't build our way out of this problem. And when we think of things like autonomous cars, look at what's happening in Europe. They're closing their city centers to automobiles, period. By 2019 in Oslo, 6 other cities within the next few years, and the EU is committed to close all their downtowns to cars by 2050. Norway is, I told somebody $5 billion earlier. It's $1 billion that they've committed to bicycle superhighways. And you look at what they spend. By the way, I learned that Singapore spends $2,500 per person on healthcare. We spend $8,700 in the US with our car-oriented, processed food-oriented system. So if you truly want to save money, you invest in the right things. You build the things that you want people to use and to do. And the suburbs that are successful, like Arlington outside of DC, will become cities. They'll become cities connected to downtown Singapore by high-speed rail. But I do think, and look, I know that in some cases here it gets really hot, and you want to have the elevated walkway or the walkway underground. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think it would be a shame if we relegated the streets to autonomous cars and continued to relegate people to the background. And I do think that there's a huge opportunity to think about how to activate the space. You can still have the tunnel and the bridge that's air conditioned, but there's an opportunity to make the streets more people oriented. I'm not keeping up with that. But anyway, so this is an example of taking what we have today and really building a sustainable society and what it might look like. And in the book, I talk about an autonomous, shared, connected, multimodal future, how all these technologies can come together and be utilized to create the future that we want. Because we don't really have a choice. We are in a do-or-die situation right now. And we've got to make the change, at least for the good of our children, if not for ourselves. And I think by choosing policies and technologies that do prioritize happiness, and the US is somewhere down there at like 18th, I think government can do a better job here. And again, we got to be honest with people. In the US, people think driving is free. It's not. It's the most heavily subsidized form of transportation. And when you look at the health offsets of walking and biking, that infrastructure is essentially free. And transit, very low cost. We got to be honest with people there. The private sector's got to do their part in embracing this change. We've got to let our government officials pilot things, try things. Let them experiment, let them make mistakes. It's very important. That's how we have most of the technology that we have, including the iPhone. And if we do that, I think we can have truly great cities and a great Singapore. Thank you.